Okay, we have been studying the book of Esther, though it is a small book. There are many truths that we can learn. Okay, and some things we will recap as we move on, but we will be learning a lot of new things. Okay, as a summary, right at the beginning, I want to bring out, what are the major things that we can learn in this book. There are many other truths, about how God provides and many other things. Okay, but from a human perspective, there are many lessons we can learn from this book. Dangerous ambitions. Okay, the effect of alcoholic drinks. Last week we had seen something about this. So very briefly in passing, at some point of time during today's session also, we will have a look at that. Then we all desire to be rich, okay? And we will have a look at this, like what wealth is and how it affects a human being, okay, from the life of Xerxes. Family discords, okay, if God willing, if we get time, we will complete that as well. And choosing a spouse, because Xerxes goes about looking for a new wife, and how he goes about it, what we can learn from it. Racial hatred, Haman and his hatred for the Jews, and how he turns it into a national genocide. There are many parts of the world in which such things are happening, and even in our own country, very often hatred is expressed against other communities. And even in many places, Christians are at the receiving end of racial hatred. Okay, struggle of the minorities, what it means to be few in number, and having a belief that is totally contrary to what the majority believes. Okay, and the struggle that minorities have. Okay, and most importantly, how God sovereignly cares for his children and provides for them. Okay, they may not ask for his protection, they may not call on his name, but there is a divine plan by which he protects, he cares, he provides for all his children. Okay, Bible has application for all situations we face in life, and so every book of the Old Testament, very rich in teaching, very rich in giving you an understanding of how to live your daily life. Okay, so Esther is not an exception to that. So we will again take a walk through the world in which Esther was born to just get a feel. Today we will not be actually looking at the person Esther. Next time when we study this book, we will be doing it, but today we will just see in passing. Okay, her name was Hadassah. We have seen this last time. She was born into a world like this. Her name means myrtle tree, or something which is evergreen. And Esther in the local language of the Persians meant star. And the world she knew collapsed around her. Okay, when she was little, both her parents, the ones who could have protected her, given her protection, given her a future, all that was lost when she lost both her parents in the early part of her life. And she was adopted by her cousin Mordecai. Must have been much older than her. And during the study in the book, you'll find a very beautiful connection and between the two of them, his worry for her and her obedience to what he says. These are very touching as you look at it. Otherwise, there was no connection between them. God had a wonderful plan for her life, just as he has for each one of us. Okay, so we looked at this verse last week, but a reminder, the first word is he. If you have not written it down, you can write it down somewhere. It simply means this is what happened. Again, I'll just repeat, it is just to show that this book is a historical book. When you read it, it looks so incredible. How could this thing happen? But it's a historical eyewitness account from those times. Okay. Esther 1:1 says this is what happened during the time of Xerxes, the Xerxes who ruled 127 provinces stretching from India to Kush. Okay, so you know exactly the time period in history which is being spoken of, because a king is mentioned, and the king is specific because there were many people who ruled with the name Xerxes in Persia. This is the Xerxes, the only Xerxes who ruled 127 provinces. Okay, so he ruled from 486 to 465 BC. Okay, at that time, King Xerxes ruled from his royal throne in the citadel of Susa. You can see it in the background. And the books of Esther, Ezra, and Nehemiah, the books that we are studying right now, all have some reference to this particular place, because the lead characters originated from, lived in Persia, and they played a vital role in the revival of the Jewish kingdom. Okay, and we have seen that Xerxes' father was Darius. Esther was born during this golden era of the Persian Empire. At that time, Persia became the biggest known empire in the world at that time. Okay, Darius wanted to rule the world. He invaded Greece and lost the battle at Marathon and returned home, and soon died. His son Xerxes, at the age of 34, ascended the throne in 486 BC, and he wanted to avenge his father's death. Okay, so now we will go into our study. A little bit we will be looking at the things we learned last week as well when we passed through, because it throws light into Xerxes' character. Okay, now we will have a look at what it is like in a rich man's world. Okay, there is a statement at the top: if I were a wealthy man. Many times in our own life we wonder, kitna acha hota tha if we had lot of money, and we could buy big homes and many other things. Sometimes we wonder why we were born the way we were born. Okay, but the aspect that I want you to see and understand is that Xerxes, like many other rich people, was wealthy, successful, but also miserable. Okay, Fiddler on the Roof. Okay, this was a movie in the 1960s. Okay, when I was born, and a few years after that, there was a very famous song in this, if I were a rich man, in this movie. Okay, it made it very popular. It was a musical movie, and it describes the dreams of glory of a Jewish milkman. Okay, who had 5 daughters, and he wanted them to be married off, but he was quite poor, and his wishes, his thoughts are expressed in that song. It became very popular. Okay, one of the reasons why it became popular, because everyone in the world who is living desires to be rich. Okay, so the song that was sung struck a chord with everyone who heard some aspect of it. We also harbor wishes like that. We would have loved, many times I've told my wife, if only we had a bungalow with a garden, we could plant things, and we could nurture things, and what it would be wonderful. I am sure most of you would have had thoughts like that, and come back home to a garden in which you can have barbecues, you can call your friends home, we can have these Bible studies, maybe even in the garden. Such thoughts would come, and have a small area which faces the sea, so that we can just sit on the weekends and relax, or even in the evening time as the sun goes down, watch the sunset. These are dreams that we have, and have a lot of money so that, we can marry off our children in the most glorious and beautiful wedding ceremonies, and they would get rich husbands or wives, and their lives should be happy ever after. That's the wish that each one of us has. And so people across the world, across time, have had ambitions and hopes like that. And that is why this song, If I Were a Rich Man, became very popular. And so the movie also, Fiddler on the Roof. Okay. There are two stanzas which we will be looking at just to give you a feel of what that song is like. Okay, this is the first and the last stanza. Okay, he sings like this: Dear God, you made many, many poor people. I realize, of course, that it's no shame to be poor, but it's no great honor either. So what would have been so terrible if I had a small fortune? Okay, and then the song goes on and on with many stanzas, okay, which says, if I was wealthy and rich, then I would just loaf around and do nothing, and I'd build a big house. There will be many staircases, one of them going nowhere. I'll have many servants in the house, and my wife will have a nice time yelling and shouting and getting work done from all of them. And I'd have many cattle and geese, and everyone in my town will, by the noise that is heard from my home, know here is a rich man who's living. And everyone will flock to my house, come for advice. And how does it matter whether my advice is sound or not sound? Everyone will listen to it because it's coming from a rich man's mouth. Okay, and it goes on and on till the last stanza, which reads like this: Lord, who made the lion and the lamb? You decreed I should be what I am. Would it spoil some vast eternal plan if I were a wealthy man? Okay, and many of us, deep in our hearts, we have regrets why we are not so rich. Okay, and what would God have lost if he had given little bit more wealth to us? We could have bought little better homes, painted our house, bought a better car, or treated our ailments more easily. Many thoughts would have crossed our mind. Okay, but the road to wealth doesn't pass through happiness. Okay, there were many rich people in the Bible: Abraham, David, and many, many others. Okay, they had their people who were jealous of them and had trouble with them, and also the people in the world also. There are many wealthy people. Okay, but being wealthy does not mean necessarily that they will be happy. Okay, there is a famous saying which we always quote. Many of us also would have used this phrase: money can't buy happiness. Okay, and recent research has actually demonstrated that when people focus on wealth, their happiness actually decreases. In other words, when a person makes it his choice, makes it his ambition, makes it his life goal to become rich and wealthy, actually, instead of becoming more and more happy, he actually becomes more and more depressed and sad. Okay, maybe many of them actually become rich as well. Okay, but becoming wealthy will not bring happiness. This is the finding of many researchers who have published papers in recent times. Okay, research conclusion of a psychologist, Tim Kasser, reads like this: individuals who say that goal for money, image, and popularity are relatively important to them. People who think money is important or their image is important, what they look like, how people treat them, their popularity, these things are very important to them. They also report less satisfaction in life. Okay, this is not the Bible saying, it is also researchers who are saying it. The Bible definitely says the same thing. Okay, but research has also found the same conclusions. Fewer experiences of pleasant emotions. When they become rich, they have lesser experiences of pleasantness. Okay, more depression and anxiety. They are the biggest consumers of antidepressants. Okay, and keep Linson and my company going a few notches higher in their income. Okay, research also suggests that striving for affluence, striving for riches, hurts social relationships. People tend to fight more, okay, with their spouses, with their neighbors, with their people who live in their building, with their society, with their relatives, and they also promote ecologically destructive behavior. In other words, they are least likely to bother about the environment. They will throw garbage here and there and care two hoots about who says or who thinks otherwise. As long as they can do it, they will do it. Okay. All the evil effects of riches without experiencing God were seen in Xerxes as well. Okay, that is what we are going to see in chapter 1. We have not seen chapter 1 in so much detail in the past. This is the first time we are doing it in so much detail, but it's very important because it touches a chord in our hearts to become rich. And we need to be aware that there are serious effects or bad effects of being rich and being obsessed with money, making it a goal to become rich and making it higher and higher in the social ladder. All those ambitions, they are not too good. Okay, wealthy, successful, and miserable. This is an article which came in the New York Times. Okay, and it's written by a person called Charles Duhigg. Okay, and he says, my first charmed week as a student at Harvard Business School. He studied in Harvard Business School in the summer of 2001. And he says it felt like a great time for capitalism. And then he got a certificate. Okay. And it says he became an MBA and seemed like it looked like winning a lottery ticket. Then 15 years later, when they had their reunion in 2016, okay, this is a true story. Okay, many of his classmates at Harvard came together for a summer reunion and they learned he learned how many of his former classmates weren't overjoyed by their professional lives. In fact, they were miserable. These were the top shots of the business community of the world. They had done MBA at one of the best institutes in the world, climbed high in the corporate hierarchy, earned a lot of money, okay? And now wealth and fame and power and everything was in their hands and they were miserable, okay? So this article heading is named Wealthy, Successful, and Miserable. If you want to read, you can go to the New York Times and you can read the archived copy in even Google. Okay. Bible also talks about money. Okay. Proverbs 23 verse 5. Cast but a glance at riches and they are gone, for they will surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. Okay. Many times we have saved for retirement, bought a health policy, invested in stocks and shares. Okay, maybe people advised us how to make our money grow and we listened to them, we put money in that, and then suddenly we heard about demonetization or even about monetization. These were words which we never heard of in the vocabulary before. Okay, but now they made a big impact. Okay, and money that comes also goes away just like that. Okay, wealth is fickle, it can disappear overnight according to the Bible. Proverbs is written by these are some of the wise sayings of King Solomon. Okay, 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 17 reads like this: command those who are rich in this present age. Paul is telling Timothy, command them, okay, not request them, not plead with them. He says, command them not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, okay. Many times people tend to put their hope in wealth, just like Xerxes did, okay, which is so uncertain. Why it is uncertain? The previous verse which we read, it can take wings and fly away. It can leave you where you are with nothing in the world, nothing in the afterlife also, okay? But to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. If you think that money will bring enjoyment, no, sorry, okay? Bible says money won't. God can make you have an enjoyable life, much better and much much more fabulous than that of any rich man. Okay, so a rich man and a beggar are seen in that cartoon, both looking the same, doing the same thing. Okay, one wearing a coat and having many dollars, another having coins, but both having a bottle and a dog nearby as friends. Psalm 37 verse 16 to 17. Better the little that the righteous have than the wealth of many wicked. Okay, in Mulund, where I come from in Bombay, we used to have a beggar begging near the railway station at Mulund. Okay, and he would be having a Bible in front of him, and he would be begging there. It felt sad having a person who is a believer begging like that. But the reality is, many poor people are there who have barely nothing, practically nothing in their hands to treat their children or to even have a roof over their head, but they are very happy. Okay, for the power of the wicked will be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. And if they are righteous, it's not their poverty that makes them happy, but it's their relationship with God. The rich man and Lazarus in Luke also refers to the same thing. The beautiful relationship that the beggar Lazarus had with his God, and the absolute lack of relationship with the Creator in the rich man who was content with his wealth and then paid the price in the afterlife. Okay. Deuteronomy 8, chapter 8, verse 17 to 18. It is God who provides. Okay, verse 17 reads like this: you may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. When we have a good home, a good car, when we buy that, we have a prayer meeting and call our friends and pray and give thanks. But then after some time, when we talk, our talk and language and gesture and everything changes. If somebody bumps into our car, we stare him down. Okay. After some time, when we are talking to our colleagues and friends, we talk about how smart we were, how hard we worked, how with diligence and patience and with great effort, we accumulated what we have. And we look down on people who don't have savings or provisions for their insurance or other things. Okay, and we end up saying, my power and strength of my hands have produced this wealth. But verse 18 says, remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. Okay, if at all you are earning something, if at all you have any position in your office, it is because he gave you the ability to do that job and also to earn the income that you are earning. And so he confirms his covenant, which he swore to you, your ancestors, as it is today. Okay. James chapter 5 is a warning to the rich. Okay. James is not writing to the unbeliever. He is writing to the believers who are rich. Now listen, you rich people, weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you. Your wealth has rotted. Moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver is corroded. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. Your hoarded wealth in the last days. Okay, we like to attend sessions on second coming of Christ, but we also love to hoard wealth as if we are going to live our eternity enjoying that wealth. Okay, look, the wages you fail to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. We may have salary that is in lakhs per month, and when it comes to raising the support for a full-time worker or someone who is supported or in ministry, then we have so many questions about raising even 5,000 or 1,000 rupee for that matter, and we allow people to have no change in salary about the people we are responsible for, while if we get our increments a little late in the office, then we are very upset and angry with our companies. Okay, the wages you fail to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. You have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened yourself in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the innocent one who was not opposing you. Okay, Matthew 6:19, don't store up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. Philippians 4:19, and my God will supply all your needs, according to his riches in glory. Rather than we making effort to become rich, he says God takes upon himself the initiative and the burden of meeting all our needs. He may not meet all our wants, but he will certainly meet all our needs. Proverbs 22:1, a good name is more desired than great wealth. But what we run after, not after good name. Doesn't matter if we bribe here and there. Doesn't matter if we cheat the government of its taxes. For us, a good name in society and the world is not so important as the great wealth many times, even for believers. Psalm 49:16, don't be afraid when a man becomes rich, when the glory of his house is increased. Okay. And very often in society, we look at the rich and we are afraid of them. Okay, rich and the powerful and the mighty, but the Bible says don't be afraid of such people. Okay, back in Persia, there was a rich man called Xerxes. Okay, and this is the palace or house. Why there are many who don't have a roof on their head, but one man had a house that was so big in which hundreds and thousands of people lived. It was almost like a city in itself. He finished the huge construction which his father started, and a palace was built. And this is still there in Iran, and it's there. Okay. Ambition of the wealthy. Okay, this is another thing. The itch to rule, dominate, and subdue the world. Every rich man, Xerxes was ruling such a big, vast empire, but his ambition didn't go away. Xerxes gave a big banquet. Okay, who were the invitees? Not the poor of Susa, not the poor people. He was not going to feed or do some social service. He had invited the princes, nobles, officials, and the military leaders of Medo-Persia. Okay, and this party lasted for 6 months. Okay, what were they doing? They were strategizing how to plan, how to invade Greece. Okay, his unfettered ambition would plunge nations into war. He had a desire to defeat Greece, become more powerful, have more area in his control. Okay, and he would have a lot of people with him who would follow him because he was the rich man, he was the wealthy man, he was the powerful man, and they would listen to him, and they would be drawn into war. Millions would become homeless, widows, or orphans, and their lives would never matter in the light of his quest for dominion. Okay, but the death of soldiers, their children becoming, fatherless, or wives losing their husbands, it didn't matter at all as long as his goal for world dominion was achieved. Okay, other people were just pawns, small things which he had to use to become more powerful. Recently in the news, you would have read about many billionaires who tried to conquer space. Very recently it was in the news. Okay, not content with merely ruling the earth, humanity's billionaires have begun fighting for outer space. Okay, Amazon's founder Jeff Bezos, his company Blue Origins, went into outer space, okay, with a rocket, and they're planning to launch a business. And he expressed his gratitude for all his employees to having made him rich. Okay, and just one trip to outer space and back, which lasted a few minutes, could have fed thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are hungry and who don't get one meal in a day. But that doesn't bother the mind of a person like this. Okay, we all use Amazon services. Okay, be careful. You're increasing his riches and making him do things like Xerxes did. Virgin Galactic's Richard Branson went 9 days ahead of Jeff Bezos, and he also went to space and came back. They are planning, they have started selling tickets, already for those who want to go to space. Each ticket costs around $2.5 lakh. That's a vast wealth. Okay, one ticket. And they are hoping that at least 400 flights from the earth to space and back will be possible in a few years' time. Okay, and people have already pre-booked. More than 600 people have pre-booked their tickets with these space traveling billionaires. Okay, and why the rich are obsessed about new ideas, conquest, and not the problems of society? You know, that's a question that comes to our mind, isn't it? Virgin Galactic Space, or the background scene which is there is a painting about Xerxes' war with Greece. You know, why do they do that? Why do they pull a lot of people rather than helping the poor find food or jobs? They are more obsessed with conquest. Why does it happen? They are aloof from sufferings of humanity, and they take decisions in a self-centered manner. Right through in the Bible, there are many other monarchs you will find who were self-centered. Okay, King Saul also became like that, and they decide in a very self-centered manner. They are surrounded by yes men. Okay, that is people who agree to their ideas. That is why if you give an idea, nobody will listen to you because you're poor. You will not bless them with your money. You can't help them much anyway. But when a rich man you follow, then he has a lot of money to throw around. Okay, and that makes them more successful. This obsession follows a historical trend. Okay, people like Xerxes did it. People like the ones that I mentioned a little while ago, they all do it even today. Okay, and there are others who become pastors of churches who also dominate and rule. Okay, this craving to dominate, craving to make a kingdom for yourself, all this does not is not only restricted to the world outside. It is also seen in many empires that are built by many Christian public figures. Okay, they just want to be at the top and want everybody to be marveling them all the time. That's why they are only obsessed about things, about new ideas, about difficult things. Okay, in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 1 to 2, we are told about a dragon that stands at the sea shore, and the beast, another beast coming out with 10 horns and 7 heads with 10 crowns, and on his head a blasphemous name. And that beast resembled a leopard and a bear and a lion, and the dragon gave the beast his power. Okay, in the book of Daniel, you'll find that these beasts, the leopard stood for Greece, the bear stood for Persia, and the lion stood for Babylon. Okay, and the fourth beast that came up, that is the Roman Empire, and especially the end time Roman Empire, when the Antichrist will come, will resemble all these beasts put together. Okay, so an element of the kingdom which Xerxes and Darius and Cyrus established will be seen in that Antichrist kingdom in the end times, when the tribulation will be there. A wild ruler will one day rise from the sea of humanity to rule the world and unleash his diabolical schemes during the tribulation period. A wild ruler, a very wicked ruler, an evil ruler. Okay, Xerxes and all are small examples of it. Nero and many of the Caesars or Pharaohs or Nebuchadnezzar, these are small fellows compared to the Antichrist who is coming, who will rise from the sea of humanity, and he will have great ambitions, much greater than what these others had, and he will be successful for 7 years. Xerxes failed in his attempt to conquer the world, but the Antichrist will rule a large part of it. In more than one way, there will be a striking similarity to these kingdoms that existed in the past and the kingdom that will come during the tribulation period. Okay, wealth on display, an awestruck audience guzzled every moment of it. The picture that you see is a garden. Okay, in Iran. I visited this place. It's in a province of Yazd, and it's a huge place. It's I'll show the interior also. When you read the book of Esther, I put this picture so that you have an understanding of what those that enclosed garden in which he gave his party would have been like. Okay, there were thousands and thousands of guests. but these enclosed gardens had space enough to accommodate everyone. Okay, and in this particular garden, he displayed the vast wealth of his nation, and later wanted to display his beautiful wife dressed in royal robes, wearing a diadem to the guests that gathered. Okay, this is the inner room in that same monument that you can see at the back. Okay, sometimes I've mentioned it. I thought I'll show you a picture of it. This is that huge structure. You know, it will go to 5 stories height at least totally. And the chimney-like structure is there at the top. And inside, when you go, you will find this huge hall can seat more than 1,000 people very easily and comfortably, and you will feel as if you're in an air-conditioned place. These are structures that come from ancient Persian times, okay? And you will feel as if the fan has been turned on full because the wind will be blowing. So one of the guides was telling, you hold a paper and you see what happens to it. So in that octagonal shape at the bottom, we were standing next to it. Each side, about 8 people can stand, and we kept in our open palm a folded napkin, paper napkin, and it flew up and flew out from the top of that chimney. Okay, that powerful a draft. It is an ancient engineering wonder. Okay, it uses the wind that is blowing at the top to create vacuum, which draws the air through the door. So inside, people feel the breeze. There is no electricity that is consumed, but you will not feel hot, and it will be exciting. Okay, so the marvels of his kingdom he wanted to display to the guests who were gathered in that enclosed garden. Okay, and that word enclosed garden is something that also throws open another word in the Bible. Okay, these enclosed gardens were also called paradisos in the Greek language, okay, from which the English word paradise comes. Okay, it means simply an enclosed garden. The picture there on the screen shows an enclosed garden, a paradise, as it were. There are 3 places where this verse paradise is used in the Bible. It draws its imagery from this. The rich people had big courtyards and gardens like this, in which everything was there. This is a paradise of a king that you can see in front of you on the screen. Okay, and the Bible also uses the word paradise in this context. It is a place that the King of Kings created for his subjects, for us to enjoy. Okay, Luke 23:43 says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Okay, who said that? Our Lord Jesus. To the thief on the cross who had repented, he said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Okay, it is equivalent to the place where Lazarus was. Okay, in the parable or the story of the rich man and Lazarus, he was being comforted, he was being treated well. It was the place where Abraham was. It was the garden. Okay, from there they could lift their eyes and see the other part of Hades where the rich man was in torment. Okay, but the paradise is used as a place commemorating the place where a temporary place where believers of the Old Testament times were in comfort or being comforted till they were redeemed by the Lord Jesus Christ. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 4, Paul says that he was taken up to the second heaven, to the paradise of God. Okay, at that time paradise was not underneath the earth, but it was in the third heaven. Okay, that is in the heavens. Okay, in Revelation chapter 2 verse 7, we read like this: "Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To the one who is victorious, I will give the right to eat from the tree of life, which is in the paradise of God." Okay, there is a paradise which is reserved for us believers, and it will be given to those who are victorious on this earth. You may not have much, you may be poor, but if you are rich towards God and have a rich relationship with Him, then you need not bother about your poverty or your riches. Because at some point of time you will be welcomed into the paradise of God if you are victorious in life. Okay. Muslims also have their concept of paradise coming from this same Persian concept of paradise, where martyrs who die in their faith are have access to a paradise, and 72 virgins will be given to them. That's their belief. Wine was served and wine flowed with the king's liberality. Chapter 1, verse 7. We saw this already last week, but I want you to have a look at what is there on the screen for you. A very recent news. It is in Z News. It is from Thiruvananthapuram, okay, Trivandrum, the place from which many of our dear brothers and sisters are together from that area. The raging pandemic did not matter to the tipplers in Kerala as they gulped down a record 750 crore worth of liquor during the 10-day Onam festival, according to the sole wholesaler of liquor and beer in the state. Okay, and the headline was, the tipplers gulped down liquor worth 750 crore during the 10-day Onam festival. Okay, so it's not only in Xerxes' time that people thought that they should have a heyday. Okay, 750 crores. How many people it would have fed? But people never bothered about feeding people when they're drunk. Okay, King Xerxes set the rules. He made removed all restrictions. People could drink. Bible tells it is not good for us to walk with the wicked. Okay, and Bible encourages us not to get drunk on wine. We have seen all this last week, so we will not look at some of these things. Okay, we will move on. I'll drop this. A person loses his muscular control and judgment. Okay, he is not able to make conscious and fair judgment. I want to read some of this so that it is in the context of this the subsequent verses stand. It affects the rational thinking of people. They can't make right decisions. You don't expect people who are drunk to do the right kind of thinking. Kerala is now contributing to 70% of the COVID cases in our country, with so much of alcohol guzzled in during Onam. It is natural that people's social behavior would not have been very appropriate to COVID times. And now it is having a problem, okay? Most filters of the mind are switched off, things that will prevent you. Say no, those things are switched off, and people take decisions which they will regret later. King Xerxes was in high spirits, it says in verse 10. And on the 7th day of that second party that he gave, he commanded 7 of his eunuchs to call in Vashti wearing her royal robes. Okay, and Proverbs 21 says, wine is a mocker, strong drink a brawler, and whoever is intoxicated by it is not wise. King Xerxes was intoxicated. All his guests were intoxicated. They were in high spirits. Their filters were down. They were not thinking rationally. Their coordination was poor, but yet they were making decisions. He called his wife Vashti to appear before the others. He wanted to show off, like he showed off his garden. He wanted to show off his wife as well. Okay, but the swords were drawn. A fight took place. No sober individual would have paraded his wife in front of drunken people. And the decision of the king set him on course for a destruction of his family life. Okay, many drunk people have ruined family lives because they do things which they would not otherwise do. Beat their wives, beat their children, loot the money, they blow it up on more drinks and rash living. Okay, Vashti turned down the king's order with a public snub and bruised his ego. She refused to go, and she did it publicly. She told them, the eunuchs who had come to call, that she won't. Okay, she disobeyed publicly. She was the daughter of Cyrus. Okay, her royal blood. She must have been raised in a particular way, and she was not willing to tolerate nonsense, and she was not afraid of Xerxes, even though many other people or most people in the empire would have been. She decided to snub him publicly. Okay, she refused to go. Maybe if she had sent a private note to him, it might have avoided the ugly scene, but she decided to embarrass him, okay, with a public snub. She never took to the quiet path. Okay, and what was going to happen with the small skirmish that took place. Okay, we are not told. Vashti did right or wrong is not discussed in the Bible. Okay, but it comes there simply because this was the incident that was going to pave the way for Esther to become queen. Okay, it didn't matter to the Jewish writer, author of this book, what was right and wrong with respect to this incident, whether Xerxes was right, whether Vashti should have submitted, or Vashti was right and she should have refused, is not there. But we need to think also about principle and popularity. Okay, it is something that it throws a question. How do you take decisions in life? Okay, if you say yes to an invitation, request, or direction, and it clashes with your conscience, okay, and a no lands you in trouble with those who have power or influence over you, what is the decision you will take? Say, for instance, the boss in your college tells you that, there is a puja in your department and you have to do something. Okay, saying yes may be bothering your conscience. Saying no could land you in trouble. It landed one of my friends in trouble when he was in a multinational company, a pharmaceutical company only in Glaxo. Okay, and there was a Durga festival in Bengal, and he was in the marketing division, and they wanted him to be part of the team that went there and promoted the products during the festival, using the festival as the theme. And he was expected to do many things. He refused, and it landed him in trouble. He was pushed down, and after a year he had to quit. Okay, so we need to ask ourselves the question, Vashti was bold enough to say no. Okay, whether she did it the right way or the wrong way is another question altogether, and we are not to judge. Okay, we are not expected to judge also. Okay, because the Bible does not give further dealings, because that is not the purpose for which this incident is described. But we need to be careful about saying yes or no, and it could land us in trouble if we say no. Saying yes may make us popular, we flow with the tide, but it may be contradicting our conscience and contradicting the word of God. Be careful. The strong stand taken by Vashti is contrasted with the weak and spineless decision of Xerxes. Okay, many ways to get a thing done, but the outcome of each way could be different. Okay, saying yes and no can be done in many different ways. God will call you. He will let you know how you need to go about it. The king became furious. Verse 12 says, John McCorry, this is his house, 4.7 crore house, which he burnt a few days before it was sold to be divided with his ex-wife. Okay, and that's a tragedy. People, when they get angry and when there is a fight in the home between the husband and wife, people do irrational things. Okay, more irrational when they get drunk in addition to it. Okay, now the king initiated a consultation process because he became angry. He didn't know what to do in front of everyone with whom he had shown the wealth of the nation and was imploring them to now fight against Greece. He could not even tame his wife. That was his situation. Okay, the king consulted wise men. The Bible says they were experts on law and justice. What a wonderful thing. Who understood the times. Verse 13. The future of the emperor's family life now hung on the advice to be rendered by drunken experts. Okay, in many of our companies also, many experts and they get drunk during parties and they offer many sound or unsound drunken advice, and many people consult them. But be careful here. The emperor was in a dicey situation and he is consulting with the other nobles who are equally drunk. What a terrible thing. Okay, many would have personal biases and scores to settle. So the advice, you can expect it not to be something that will be for the good of his family. Okay, don't take your private family matters before public for a solution. Okay, this is the biblical thing. Here, the king took his family problem instead of sorting it out with his wife. He decided to take it before the nobles. So he got a solution which also was equally dumb and foolish because they were all drunk. Esther 1:18. The drunk nobles had a fear of being disrespected. okay, in their homes. This very day, the Persian and Median women of nobility who have seen, or heard about the queen's conduct, because at that time she was giving a party for the women in a separate part of the palace. Okay, they will respond to all the king's nobles in the same way. There will be no end of disrespect and discord. Okay, pura chaos ho jayega. That is what the advice that was being given by the others. Okay, a roadmap was presented by Memucan, one of the nobles. He said, Vashti's disobedience, if it is allowed to continue and nothing is done, then all wives will become disobedient. So instead, if you throw her out, give her place to someone else, all wives will become obedient. Okay, so that's the suggestion the Memucan gave, and this was a decision of the drunks made into law in verse 19. Therefore, if it pleases the king, let him issue a royal decree, let it become law. Okay, so not just a decision, it was turned into a law. The parliament passed it as a law which had to be followed. Look at it. Every wife should obey the husband. That's the law. Okay, what a joke. That Vashti is never to enter the presence of King Xerxes. He terminated her relationship with him and let the king give her royal position to someone else. That's the advice that was given by these drunks. Okay, and the expectations of the enacted law. Then when the king's edict is proclaimed, this is the conclusion of those drunken experts, okay, which they share to their king. When the king's edict is proclaimed throughout his vast realm, all women will respect their husbands from the least to the greatest. What a expectation, okay? Every wife in every home in the kingdom of Persia, because the king has passed this edict, will now submit to their husbands. That's what these nobles were expecting. Okay, and this is what would have happened in many of the homes. Many poor husbands, nobles would have taken the king's notice to their home and got a taste of their wife's displeasure immediately. Okay, and had a taste of their submission. It's an honor for a man to keep aloof from strife, but every fool will be quarreling. Okay, we will be ending now. Esther chapter 2 verse 1. Sometime later, he regretted his decision. That's what we said. Many drunken decisions, drunken acts are taken when the filters are down and people do irrational things, and when they become sober, they regret. Okay, verse 1 of chapter 2 says, when the king's fury had subsided, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what he had decreed about her. Okay, a beautiful book. Those who can get hold of it, you can read it. David Wilkerson's book, Sipping Saints, is something about what Christians should do with alcohol. Okay, is drinking wine wrong? Did Jesus turn water to wine? What is to be taken while breaking bread? And how about a little wine for your stomach's sake? That was Paul's advice to Timothy. All these questions are answered in this book very beautifully by David Wilkerson. He is the evangelist who led gangster Nicky Cruz to the Lord in the streets of New York. Okay, he was a village preacher who came to the city and rescued them. Okay, a trap. I'll just be finished in 2 minutes. Which may destroy the drunk believer. Be careful, or your hearts will be weighed down with dissipation, drunkenness, and the anxieties of life, and that day will close in on you unexpectedly like a trap. It's a warning for believers, drunken saints, sipping saints, or whatever you may call them. It's a warning for people who hit the bottle even though they are saved. Okay, end of a tragic life. This is not recorded in the book of Esther, but King Xerxes, Emperor Xerxes, was murdered by his bodyguard, Artabanus. Okay, and it was a tragic end to a life. But here in this chapter, chapter 2 begins 4 years later. Okay, 4 long years before Esther is chosen. But it was time needed, because Esther must have been a little girl at that time. And God was waiting for her to become into a little young, beautiful woman. Okay, a woman fit for the time that was ahead for the Jewish people. Okay, Esther grew from being a teenager to a young woman. Okay, so next week or the next time when we continue with the study, we will have a look at the orphan queen. Okay, chapter 2. We will be studying whenever God willing, next Friday or some other week after that. We will be continuing with the orphan queen. Okay, with that, I would like to close, hand over the time to